Alright, this is just another update on that CNC router that I'm building, and I thought I'd do an update now. I'm just about done, but let's go back several weeks, and I had to figure out a way to tie those two Y drives together, and I had these old T10 timing belts from my last router that I had built, and as I showed you, I had found a new belt long enough on eBay, so I got these parts here that I'm going to take apart and start modifying to use again. And the first thing I did is, this is one I had modified. I modified it, and I machined it down to accept the coupling that came with those lead screws, but turned out they're really not strong enough, so I'm going to have to do something else. I'll show you in the end. I actually had some issues with this motor, as I thought I would. So first thing I did is I went out in the shop and had to cut down these shafts a little bit and machine them down some. So they were stainless steel, and I just used a little portable jet bandsaw there, and then it was time to throw them in this old South Bend lathe I've got here and do some machining. First thing I had to do was machine out the couplings so they were 10 millimeters on each side, so they'd fit on these pieces that I'm modifying here. And that's an easy thing to do, and I have to tell you, having an old lathe around like this really is a great helper. It's like the most important tool to have, I think. And then there I got that cut down shaft. I've got to go back in and machine that down to fit the pulleys now. But this lathe is older than me, actually, and it's just a very handy tool to have, and it still works good and does a good job. So there you can see I'm just kind of starting to turn down these pieces and just make them match my coupling now, and trying to shorten them down and square them off and everything right on the lathe here. So I won't bore you with too much of this, looking at this machining of the parts, because it does take a lot of time, and it's something that probably nobody else will ever do. So I just thought I'd show you that one of these old lathes can be real handy when it comes to modifying parts like this. So a little while later, and everything's machined down and ready to go, and the parts fit together. And there's what it looks like. And there's the coupling that goes on it. And it looks like it's gonna work, but like I said, it turns out these couplings are not strong enough in the end. I'll show you that later. So in the meantime, while I'm playing with that, I'm also redoing the dust collection in my shop. I had this one T up here in the line that I had to go back and cut out because I've moved a lot of things around. And you can see I've got that one pipe running around the outside, but I actually need one down the middle. So I cut out the T, and there's no way to get the glue joints apart, and then you can see I've got grounding wires and everything and stuff that have to be dealt with also. And I started running the one in for the router, and there's how the router is going to tie into it. And then it got really cold outside, so it was time to go out and machine some more parts for that Y assembly, and lit up a fire in the wood stove and started machining away on those pulleys so I could actually turn the whole assemblies around, because the belt I found was not the exact length, so I had to build a way to tension it into it, and I just wound up machining away some of these old T10 pulley assemblies. And there you see it's a couple of minutes later, everything's all machined, and then I had to make a aluminum tube to go between it, because there's no way that I could put the tension on those lead screw bearings. This big belt requires probably about 100 pounds of tension to get all the slack out and stuff, and there you can see I kind of put together a another pulley on the bottom that goes up and down to tension it all, and it did work out good. And this is just testing it out with the motor. And there you can see both pulleys turn, and they'll be coupled to the lead screw there. So that's how I'm going to sync the two sides. And like I've said all along, I always have my doubts about this motor working out, and we'll see in a little while that it really didn't. But everything is, all together now, and the movements are all working. The box is all wired up and stuff, and it looks like my cooling doesn't really swing the temp that much when the spindle's running. So I think it's all going to work out in the end. But this was before I started doing the table boards, and I got the VFD there working with the spindle and speed control. And there's that assembly tying the two lead screws together, and everything's all calibrated up with this and stuff. So this is a good start here, but in the end it turns out that mounting that motor actually did turn out being a waste of time. So there it is, all pretty much everything's moving now and stuff, just not moving fast enough. And there's all the tensioning, and the belts did work out good in the end once I got it figured out how to tension it. Now this Masso, they emailed me a link to an update for it. So there's a new update coming out. So you just put it on the USB drive, hit the F1 key there when you're starting it up. And I figured I'd do this update before going any further. And once it comes up there, you can see it lists the updates on the drive, and I just selected the new one, and this thing is just really amazing. It takes probably less than a minute to do the update, and it completely, it just does it and works when it's done. It's I really love this Masso, and I'm really happy how easy it is to set up and how versatile it is to make changes later and stuff. And no PC required, and it's instant on in a couple seconds and stuff, so really does work out good. So there it is, updates installed, and now it's rebooting itself there to go into the main window. And they did actually make a lot of changes in this update, and first thing you can see is the color of everything. I really like the new colors that they've implemented. And the only thing they didn't do is the last update had cap locks on when it came on. So the password, it wouldn't take it at first until I hit the caps. So everything's updated on it now, and I've got the all the movements working. You can pretty much see that that little controller actually makes it real easy to position things and stuff. And there you can see that belt assembly. I did get those two screws synchronized and working together. And about the only thing that I'd change if I did it over again is I'd probably go with a bigger pitch on the lead screws, so you didn't have to turn it so fast to move it. But I loaded an old G-code file in here to run, and this is where I started running into problems. Turns out that motor on the wide drives that I just mounted is good up to about 100 inches per minute. After that, I'm starting to get motor drive encoder following errors. So it just doesn't have the power, which I always, thought it wouldn't, but I just was stupid and had to, install it just to see what happened. But anyhow, this is, I did get it running, and as long as I keep it under 100 inches a minute, everything goes good with that motor. But that's just way too slow for what I want. So I started looking into a replacement and actually ordered one. So there you can see everything is, it's moving now to run the G code, and everything will cut, and it's calibrated to be fairly accurate. I'll do the final calibrations when I make some cuts on it later, but right now the wizard in that Masso unit is just so easy to use, and everything just works so nice, using this Masso, and I just love the screen on it now that they've changed it. And there you can see it's just kind of following this G code. I'm just testing it and making sure the spindle started and ran, and the speed control works. So basically I'm at the point now where everything works. Just have to replace that motor there to make it work fast enough to get good chip loads. I can't really go with much more of a gear ratio on that. I thought going with like a 5-to-1 would help, but the motor just can't accelerate and decelerate fast enough. Then it was time to start working on the table now that I knew everything was working. And first thing I did is I made the main table board there and threw a couple coats of polyurethane on both sides of it to protect it. And then I started making these replaceable slats that are going on it. These will be surfaced down to be perfectly flat once I get the machine running, and then they'll also be replaceable. After a couple times of flattening, you're probably going to have to replace them, but this MDF stuff is cheap and easy to machine. So I cut them to width, and then I went back and put some little dados on the edges there to capture the T-tracks to make sure that I could really crank down on them without ripping them off the table. And one thing when you're machining this MDF, you really have to make sure you got the dust collector running, because it will make a mess, and it's really bad to breathe it and stuff. But like I said, it's cheap, and it's good for something like this. So there's what the table slots are going to look like. And I mounted the main table board there, and this is where the T-tracks are all going in place. Now this table, actually the table is going to be sticking out further than what's there. Right now it's stopping at this point. And then I had to make some protectors for the screws, and originally I was going to make them out of, I was going to plasma cut some sheets of aluminum, but I just didn't feel like going down to the supplier with this COVID-19 being as bad as it is again. And there I just used plywood and I painted it, and basically they don't look too bad, and there'll be some outer covers that go on there later and stuff too, but for now I got them done, and that's how the T-tracks are going to lock down in there. And I had to I decided to mount it from the top with screws. I'm just counterboring the screw heads here by about a 1/2 inch, so that way I should be able to resurface this several times before I have to replace them, and they'll be real quick and easy to replace. So it took a little while to get them all drilled and centered, and everything the same, but I'll probably run the next batch when I have to replace them on the CNC router, so that'll make it easier. Then it was time to drill about 100 holes and start mounting everything. And you have to be careful you don't over tighten screws in this MDF too. You just a lot of them I had to do by hand just to make sure that you didn't pull them out. And on the back of those table boards, I actually put a counter sink on the back so that when you put the screws into the board below, they actually make like a little mound of the MDF when you tighten them. So I put counterboards so everything would pull together tight, and they wouldn't try to raise up on that mound of sawdust. So you can see everything's really, starting to come together now, and just about got the table all done there, and a couple holes along the edge. I wound up having to use that little right angle attachment for the drill near the edge, because the drills are just too fat to get in there. But it, this is something here. These planks, like I said, will be, replaced over time as they get machined down, because, first I'll take about 20 thousandths off of them, probably just to flatten the whole tabletop for my, when I first start to machine up. And then once as they get destroyed, I'll be, taking a couple thousandths off every now and again. So there's the main half of the table. Now this front table is next to be built, but I Had to go back and add, I didn't add in my optical homing sensor for the Y until I got everything running there. So I had to drill a couple holes and mount the optical sensor on there. And then I got my Cameo 3 running, and I cut a bunch of vinyl graphics for it also to just put on there and dress it up a little. And this is the front vertical table. Starting to drill it and set it up for mounting. Now I'm using those T-nuts into that 80-20 tubing there to mount it. So had to counterbore them and drill them, and I get a lot of use out of those Armor Tool auto clamps too. And I have to say they've worked good so far. I've had no trouble with them. And there's the front table going in place. And at the same time, just showing you, I'm starting to put some of the graphics on, just stick them here and there. And that Cameo has been a fun tool for stuff like this. And then the front table boards, I did have to put a couple coats of polyurethane on, and I got my dust collection hose all worked out. I took a piece of stainless tubing and hung it from the ceiling, and took an old caster wheel and machined around in it to match, so I'd have a follower to keep the dust collection hose moving freely. And then all the polyurethane is dry and everything's ready to go together with this front table. And there you can see I've got those T-nuts that I'm going to use. Just put them in there, and when they turn, they lock in place and they pull down really tight and they'll hold good. So this board here is, these front tables are going to be permanent. There'll be no, machining on them. I've got some squaring up adjustments to do, and, that's it. And then again, I'm putting the slats. I'm doing the same setup on the front here for the T-track. So I'm starting to add the slats and the T-tracks, as you can see here, getting everything lined up. And there it is. Got the first couple of them in place, and now there's a table extension that goes on the front there, and this is just a the simple extension, and I've got the main frame made up there. And then there's a top that goes on, and then there'll be more those replaceable slats on it. Now this table here will be removed when I want to use the rotary or when I want to do vertical work. So a couple T-slot nuts and knobs hold it in place. And I just kind of did the final assembly and gluing together with it in place so I could check squareness and levelness and stuff. And there you can see it takes about 2 seconds to pull that off, and I'll be switching over to the rotary, or I'll be making actually fixtures for holding vertical things too once I get the router going. And then it's time to set up some touch plates, and I had to order a couple resistors I didn't have, and had some old brass laying around I machined the plates out of. So I got them hooked up to the Masso controller and followed the instructions, and everything was simple and worked good. And then I had to go back and make some more boards to go on the front there, because I shortchanged myself in the beginning. And here you can see I've got the, I just gave it the homing command, and there's the home position. All the sensors work, and everything's all set up and going. And then I'm going to show you the probing. Masso's got this really great thing for finding the top of the part you're working on. I made this little brass block for probing. And you just go to that window, pull off the dust collector so you can see how it works. Basically, I put a piece of MDF on there to find the top of the height. And then I'm just going to go click the little button for the probing. And right now, I do have everything moving extremely slow. I can speed that up once I know it's working, and I'm not going to have crashes. But this is just kind of my first test of it. So you see it goes down, and then it finds the top there, and then it gets a fine adjustment and backs back up to the starting point. So now I'm just going to give it a command for the Z to go to 0, 0. And just double check that I've got the right thickness in there for my block. And there you can see went down, and it's just perfect. So that really, it's repeatable within about 1,000. So I'm real happy with that. And it's just that one little button there, but if I get a better probe, I can set it up to find the center of holes and stuff like that also. And then I got the tool changer all set up. Well, it's manual I'm using, but give it an MO6 command there. So now I decided I wanted this front corner of the table. I wanted the tool change to be done there because it's really easy to access, and it's right out in the front there with nothing in the way. So I hit MO6, it's going to go right out to that spot, and then you'll change your tool. And once you change your tool, you lose your 0 on it. So what it's automatically going to do now is I've got the tool height plate sitting over there for now. I can move this now, but I like it kind of right there because it's out of the way. And it's going to go back to that position. And then, as I said, I've got this running slow now because I'm just getting it going. But you'll see that it's going to go down, and it's just going to touch the top of that brass plate and reset the end of the tool length to whatever it is there to match the last one. And then once it's done with that, it will go right back to the position where you will your working position where it called for a tool change. So this will all be done automatically, and it'll be very easy to change out tools in the G code. And then once you get right back there, it knows which tool it's got now, and you can run the code. And I did put some lights under the gantry there also, you can see. And everything's pretty much working now. It's just not working fast enough for me, so that's the next problem. But everything, I can move. No problem with dust collection hose getting in the way or kinking. Everything moves properly now. And there's that front table all in place. You can see it's just an extension of the rest of it, and it's very easy to swap out. And I do have to build a table for the rotary assembly next. That'll go on there also, but that'll be real simple once I get this running. And I got all the tool touch plate, and I got the probing plate all working. Now I could use the same one if I wanted, but I really want to just keep them separate for now. And this Masso controller is just awesome. I do have a row of switches to put across the front of the monitor there on the bottom yet. That's one more thing to do. And pretty much everything else is ready to go, and ready to start doing a run pretty soon. So that's kind of, thought I'd give you an update. That's kind of what it looks like now, and all the dust collections in place. I did get that tube run, and there's my router drop. The router is going to be sitting in the middle of the shop there. So that's all hooked up now and working. It'll be nice to have it all working. And there's the drop for the downflow table on my bench too, so I can hook that in now. So basically I ordered a new motor, and yesterday it finally arrived, and here it is. I decided to go with a hybrid stepping motor combination type to see how that works. I was looking for an old threadmill motor, but I couldn't find one to replace that servo with, and I just figured this would be the easiest for me now. And I've always wanted to try these, and it's basically like a stepper motor with an encoder on it, so it's almost like a servo. And as you can see, it's everything's come together now finally, and hopefully next video, hopefully next year, by next year I'll get around to changing that motor out and finishing everything up, and doing some real cutting. But until then, I just thought I'd give you an update and show you that I'm at the point where I should have listened to my my initial thoughts and replaced the motor right up front, but it's one of those things where I decided to try out the old one, and it's just not fast enough for what I need. So I will be doing some rework in the electric box there too, swapping out drives and stuff like that. But all in all, it's really been a fun project, and I've learned a lot, and I learned a lot about the Masso, and I got to customize exactly what I wanted here, so I'm real happy with how it's come out so far. Hopefully it'll be next video, see it running. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.